The old man walked slowly through the dusty streets of the ruined city. His name was Elias. His steps were heavy, and his breath was slow. The wind carried dust and the smell of old broken things. The city had once been alive with strange buildings and lights, but now it was dead. The aliens who lived here were gone, vanished after the Great War between worlds. Elias wasn't sure why he came here. Maybe it was curiosity, or maybe it was loneliness. He had no family left. Earth was too far, and the few humans who lived nearby didn't care about an old man. The ruins felt empty, but they matched the emptiness inside his heart. As he stepped around a broken statue, he heard a sound, a soft, weak sound. It was almost like a whimper. He stopped and listened carefully. At first, he thought it was the wind, but then he heard it again, a faint cry, almost like a small animal. Elias turned towards the sound. He pushed aside a metal sheet and found a dark corner between collapsed walls. There, hidden under pieces of scrap, was a small creature. She was curled up tightly, her skinny arms wrapped around her knees. Her skin was pale purple, almost glowing in the shadow. She was dirty, her hair messy and matted with dust. She looked like a child, but not human, an alien girl. Her eyes were half open, glowing faintly. She looked at Elias but didn't move. She didn't even have the strength to run. Elias could see her bones through her thin skin. She was starving. For a moment, Elias stood still. He had seen many dead things in the ruins, but this was different. This was a child. She was alive, barely. He knew others would leave her to die. She was just an alien after all. But Elias couldn't do it. "Hey there," Elias said softly, kneeling down. "Are you hurt?" The girl didn't reply. She just stared at him with those glowing eyes, filled with fear and pain. She looked too weak to speak. Elias reached into his old bag and pulled out a small piece of bread and a water bottle. He placed them on the ground near her. She didn't touch them. She only watched him, unsure if it was safe. "You need to eat," he said, pushing the food closer. "Come on, kid. You won't last another day like this." Still she didn't move. Elias sighed. He looked around. The city was silent, but he knew dangers could be anywhere. He couldn't leave her here. "Fine," he whispered. Carefully, he reached out and picked her up. She was so light, almost like carrying a bundle of sticks. She didn't fight him. She was too weak even for that. Elias carried her back to his small shelter on the edge of the ruins. His shelter was simple, a broken house with half a roof, a small fire pit, and a few supplies. He laid the girl on a blanket and placed food and water next to her again. Hours passed. She finally reached out with shaking hands and grabbed the water. She drank slowly, her throat dry and sore. Then she ate a little bread, piece by piece. Elias watched quietly, making sure she didn't choke. "Good," he said. "That's good. Take your time." The girl glanced at him but still didn't speak. Her eyes stayed on him as if she was trying to understand what he wanted. "You don't trust me yet," Elias said with a small smile. "That's smart. The world's not kind to kids like you." The days passed slowly. The girl regained a little strength. She didn't talk, but she watched everything Elias did. She watched him cook, fix tools, and tend the small fire. Sometimes she would sit up, hugging her knees, her bright eyes following him. Elias started calling her Leary, because her eyes reminded him of little lights in the dark. She didn't seem to mind. One night, as they sat near the fire, Elias spoke. "Where are your people, Leary? What happened to them?" She didn't answer. She only stared into the flames, her face sad and empty. Elias knew there was a story there, a sad story. But he didn't push her. He had time. For now, keeping her alive was enough. But deep inside, Elias felt uneasy. A girl like her, alone, in the ruins, couldn't be a normal child. Something terrible must have happened to her. And worse, someone might be looking for her. As the wind howled outside the broken walls, Elias watched the shadows carefully. He had a feeling the peace wouldn't last. Morning came with a cold breeze that slipped through the cracks of the broken shelter. The old man, Elias, opened his eyes slowly. The small fire had turned to ash and the ruins outside were still, wrapped in fog. Then he heard a soft sound, a small cough. He turned his head and saw the alien girl Leary trying to sit up. Her arms trembled, but her eyes were open, watching, cautious yet curious. Elias sat up and smiled gently. "Well, look, who's finally awake?" he said. "You're stronger than you look." She didn't speak, but she didn't look away this time. That was progress. Elias stood and moved to the corner where he kept his food. He pulled out a small pot, filled it with water, and set it over the new fire he started. The scent of cooking filled the shelter, warm, simple stew made of dried meat, grains, and a few herbs he'd gathered from the outskirts. Leary watched carefully, her nose twitching. The smell was unfamiliar but tempting. Her body still weak, but her hunger stronger now. When the stew was ready, Elias poured some into a small bowl and placed it gently in front of her. "Eat," he said, his voice soft but firm. "You need it." Leary looked at the bowl, then at Elias, then back at the bowl. Slowly, she reached out, her fingers shaking. She took a small sip, her glowing eyes widened slightly. She took another sip, then another, until she was eating faster. Elias chuckled softly. "There you go, kid. That's better." But as she ate, tears started rolling down her cheeks. She didn't make a sound, but the tears kept coming. She ate and cried at the same time, as if her body couldn't decide whether to be happy or sad. Elias's heart ached seeing that. How long had she been starving like this? How long had she been alone? "You don't have to cry," he said gently. "You're safe here. No one's going to hurt you." Leary wiped her face clumsily, looking embarrassed. She was still a child, even if from another world. After she finished the stew, she lay back down, exhausted but satisfied. Her eyes slowly closed, and she fell into a deep sleep. Elias sat near the fire, watching her breathe steadily. "Poor thing," he muttered. "What did they do to you?" He couldn't shake the feeling that her being here meant trouble. In all his years, he had seen many aliens, some peaceful, some dangerous. But this girl, she was different. Her skin glowed faintly, even in sleep, like a living crystal. And her hair, though tangled, shimmered like silver under the firelight. She wasn't just any alien child. That night, as the wind howled through the ruins, Elias stayed awake. He heard distant sounds, metal creaking, stone shifting maybe, footsteps. But nothing came near. In his heart, he made a decision. He couldn't abandon her. Whatever she was, whatever danger she brought, she deserved to live. The next morning, Leary was sitting up when Elias woke. She pointed at the pot, her eyes questioning. Elias smiled. "You want more?" All right. As he prepared another simple meal, Leary watched his every move like she was studying him. She mimicked his gestures, trying to understand. When he handed her the bowl again, she managed a tiny smile. It was the first time Elias saw her smile. It was small, faint, but real. "There's that smile," he said, his own smile growing wider. "You're going to be just fine, kid." But deep down, Elias knew the ruins weren't safe for long. Strange lights had been seen in the sky lately. Others spoke of hunters moving through the wastelands, aliens searching for something or someone. And Elias had a sinking feeling that they were searching for the little girl with glowing skin, now sleeping peacefully in his shelter. Whatever secret she held, Elias would soon find out. The days passed quietly in the ruins, but Elias knew peace never lasted long in a place like this. He spent his mornings gathering supplies and his nights watching the stars, while Leary slowly regained her strength. She still didn't speak much, but her eyes followed him everywhere, like she was trying to understand how humans lived. One evening, as the sun set behind broken towers, Elias returned to the shelter carrying a few dry branches. But the moment he stepped inside, he froze. Leary was standing in the middle of the room, eyes closed, her body glowing softly. Little lights floated around her, tiny specks of blue and purple, like fireflies made of energy. Elias stared in shock. He didn't dare move. Suddenly the lights around her pulsed, and the ground trembled faintly beneath his feet. Then her eyes snapped open, shining bright like twin stars. She gasped and stumbled, the lights vanishing instantly. Elias rushed to her side, catching her before she fell. "Leary, hey! What was that?" he asked, his voice both worried and amazed. She looked up at him, her breathing heavy, eyes still glowing but dimmer now. She shook her head, as if she didn't know what had just happened either. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head again, but tears gathered in her eyes. "It's all right," Elias said, his voice softer. "You're okay, I've got you." He carried her back to the blanket and gave her water. She drank it slowly, still shaking. What are you, kid?" Elias whispered to himself. That was no normal trick. That night, Elias couldn't sleep. He sat by the fire, watching Leary as she slept. He remembered the stories he had heard from other scavengers, about an ancient alien race that once ruled this planet, a race of beings who could control energy, light, even gravity itself. But they were wiped out long ago in a great war. Could Leary be one of them? Or maybe something even rarer? His thoughts were broken by a distant sound, a whistle through the air, like a fast wind. He grabbed his old rifle and stepped outside. Up in the sky, he saw them, lights moving in the dark, not stars, but ships. Silent and fast, Elias cursed under his breath. He knew what that meant. Someone was searching the ruins, and they might be searching for Leary. He rushed back inside and knelt beside her. She was still asleep, but she looked peaceful now. He didn't want to wake her, not yet, but as he watched her, he saw something else. Faint marks on her arms, like old scars. Not from accidents, but from something done to her. Symbols, strange and curved, as if burned into her skin long ago. Had done this to her? Why would anyone mark a child like that? Elias clenched his fists. Whatever this girl was, someone wanted her badly, badly enough to send hunters. But he had made his choice already. He wouldn't let anyone take her. She wasn't just an alien anymore. She was a child under his care. At dawn, Elias packed his bag with supplies. He needed to move her deeper into the ruins, somewhere harder to find. When Leary woke, he was ready. "We're leaving, kid," he said. "It's not safe here." She looked at him with wide eyes, then nodded. As they stepped out into the cold morning, the wind carried a strange sound, distant but real. Voices, metallic and harsh, speaking a language Elias didn't know. But one thing was clear: the hunters had arrived, and they were getting closer. Elias gripped his rifle tighter and looked down at Leary. She stared ahead, her eyes filled with a strange light, as if she could sense them too. "Don't worry," Elias whispered. "I'm not letting them take you." But deep inside he wondered, if her powers woke again, would she be able to protect them both? Or would those powers bring even more danger? Either way, the time of hiding was over. The hunters were coming. Elias moved fast through the narrow paths of the ruined city, with Leary following closely behind. Her small feet stumbled over broken stones, but she didn't complain. She knew, just like Elias, that something bad was coming. The sky above was gray, but even through the clouds, Elias saw flashes of light, like small fires in the distance. He could hear the sound of engines, low and deep like growls of some giant animal. Then from the shadow of a broken wall, Elias saw them. Figures in dark armor, tall and sharp-looking, moved through the ruins. Their armor wasn't human. It was sleek, black with red glowing lines across their bodies. Their faces were hidden behind metal masks shaped like skulls, and their eyes burned red. They carried strange weapons shaped like long claws. Wherever they walked, the air seemed to grow colder. They moved in silence, but every step they took was heavy, like the ground feared them. Leary stopped, her body trembling. She grabbed Elias's arm and shook her head hard. "They are here. For me," she whispered, her voice shaky and soft. Elias looked down at her. "Why? Who are they?" She swallowed, her glowing eyes full of fear. "They are hunters. They come to end me. My family ... All gone because of them." Elias's heart sank. She was just a child, yet she carried the weight of her peoples. "Death, we won't let them catch you," Elias said firmly. "I promise." But he knew he was just one old man with a rusty rifle. Against those hunters, he was nothing. Suddenly, one of the hunters stopped and turned its head sharply, as if it heard something. It made a clicking noise, and the others gathered around. "They can smell me," Leary whispered, her voice full of terror. "Even from far." "Then we keep moving," Elias said, gripping her hand. "We stay ahead," but it was too late. A sharp noise, a whistle, cut through the air. A red beam shot past them, hitting the wall and turning the stone into glowing ash. "They've seen us." Elias shouted. He picked Leary up and ran, his old legs burning with every step. Shots fired behind them, but the ruins gave them cover. Elias ducked through broken buildings, old tunnels, and collapsed bridges. He didn't stop, even when his legs screamed in pain. Leary clung to him, whispering in her strange language, her body glowing faintly. Then she touched his chest. Suddenly, Elias felt lighter. His steps felt faster, like the ground pushed him forward. He didn't understand how, but Leary was helping him, her power making him quicker, stronger, just enough to escape. But the hunters didn't give up. They moved. Like shadows, jumping between walls and towers, never missing a step. They didn't tire. They didn't stop. At last, Elias reached an old underground station, a place deep beneath the city where the hunters' signals might not reach. He set Leary down, panting hard. We'll hide here ... for now." Leary looked up at him, her face pale. "They won't stop. They will burn everything. Until they find me." Elias knelt beside her. "Why, Leary? What do they want from you?" She lowered her head, her voice barely a whisper. "Because I carry the light, the last light of my kind. If I live, the light lives. If I die, it ends." Elias stared at her, finally understanding. She wasn't just any child. She was the last flame of her people, a living secret that others wanted to destroy. "They fear you," Elias said softly. "That's why they hunt you." Leary nodded, tears forming in her eyes. "And I'm scared of me too." Elias put a hand on her shoulder. "Don't be. You're not alone anymore." Above them, the sounds of metal footsteps echoed. The hunters were close, too close. The ground shook with their approach. Elias checked his old rifle, though he knew it wasn't enough. But he stood, his back straight. "If they want you, Leary," he said, "they'll have to go through me first." Leary's eyes shined brighter. She wiped her tears and stood too, her small hands glowing with a soft light. She whispered, "That I will help you, Father." Elias blinked, surprised by the word. But he smiled. "Then let's make them regret coming here." And in the dark tunnels of the dead city, the old man and the little alien girl waited together as the hunters drew near. The underground station was cold and quiet, but the silence didn't comfort Elias. Somewhere above, the hunters were searching, their heavy steps echoing through the stone walls. Elias sat by the old tracks, his rifle across his knees, watching. The girl who sat close by, her glowing eyes lost in thought. Leary hugged her knees, her light dim but steady. Then in a soft voice, she spoke. "I was not always alone." Elias looked up. It was the first time she spoke so clearly. "My family. They were the light keepers," she whispered. We held the star flame, the power of creation itself. The flame lived inside us, passed from one to another. Elias listened closely, every word heavy with meaning. The hunters. She continued, they were made to destroy the flame, long ago. They served the dark kings who feared us. When the war ended, my people hid. But one by one, we were found. My parents, my brothers, they burned because of me. Her voice cracked, her shoulders shaking. I was too young to control it. So they marked me to hide the flame inside. But the hunters still found us. She raised her arm, showing the strange marks on her skin. These marks are chains. To lock my power. My family thought it would hide me. But the hunters still smell the light. Elias's heart grew heavy. She was just a child, yet carried a power older than his world could imagine. And the burden of her family's death haunted her. That's why you ran, Elias said quietly. You didn't want them to find you. Leary nodded, tears glowing faintly on her cheeks. And now they will kill you too, she said, her voice small. Elias shook his head. Not if I can help it, but I'm dangerous, Leary whispered. If the chains break, the light will burn everything, even you. Elias chuckled softly, surprising her. Kid, I've lived long enough to know one thing. Sometimes light burns, but it also shows the way. She looked at him confused. I don't care if you're dangerous. You're just a kid who needs help, Elias said. And I'm too old to run from what's right. Leary stared at him, her lip trembling. Why? Why help me? Elias smiled, a sad and warm smile. Because once, I had a daughter too. She didn't survive the wars. I couldn't protect her. But I can protect you. That truth hung between them like a bridge. A connection formed not by blood, but by choice. Suddenly, Leary sat up straighter, her eyes glowing stronger. They're coming, she said. They're below us now. Elias stood rifle ready. Though he knew it was no match for what approached. Then we make our stand here, Elias said. But not alone. Leary took a deep breath and held out her hands. I will try. To break the chains. If I don't, we both die. Her skin glowed brighter, and the marks on her arms began to shimmer and twist as if alive. She screamed softly, her whole body shaking, as light pushed against the symbols trying to hold it back. The tunnels trembled, stones cracking as energy filled the air. Elias stepped back, shielding his eyes. He watched, amazed as the girl who had once been too weak to walk now stood like a star ready to burst. Her voice rang out, strong and clear. I am Leary, last lightkeeper. I will not hide anymore. The marks on her skin burned away, turning to ash. The chains were gone, and her power awakened. Her body glowed fully, like a living sun, her eyes bright as dawn, and far down the tunnel, the red lights of the hunters appeared. But this time, they were not hunting a weak, starving girl. They were facing the last light of a dying race, and she was done running. Elias smiled, his old heart filled with pride and awe. Let them come, he whispered. We're ready. The tunnels rumbled with the sound of heavy steps. The air felt heavy, like the ground itself was holding its breath. In the darkness, the red eyes of the hunters glowed like distant embers, slowly getting closer. Elias stood with his old rifle, his hands steady but his heart racing. He knew this was likely his final stand. One old man against a squad of alien killers. It was madness, but he wasn't alone. Beside him stood Leary. She wasn't the frightened, starving girl anymore. Her body glowed softly, the marks on her skin now gone, burned away by her own power. Her silver hair shimmered like threads of light, and her violet eyes burned with a strength that Elias had never seen in any being before. They will show no mercy, Leary said, her voice stronger. Now steady. We must not give them any, Elias chuckled. I was never much good at mercy anyway. Then, without warning, the hunters attacked. A red beam shot down the tunnel, exploding against the stone wall. Dust filled the air, but through it, the hunters charged, tall, armored, and deadly, their weapons glowing with lethal energy. Elias fired first. His bullet struck one of the hunters in the chest, but the armor barely cracked. The creature growled and kept coming. "Figures," Elias muttered. "Never easy." Leary raised her hands, her palms glowing brighter. Then, with a deep breath, she stepped forward. The hunters fired together, beams of red energy cutting through the air. But before the beams could hit, a wave of light burst from Leary. A dome of shimmering blue energy spread around them like a shield. The beams struck the light and vanished like water on stone. Elias's mouth dropped open. "Not bad, kid." Leary didn't smile. Her focus was sharp, her body glowing brighter with each second. Then she pushed forward, her energy cracking the ground beneath her feet. The shield exploded outward like a wave, knocking the hunters back. Two of them smashed into walls, their armor dented and sparking. But the hunters were relentless. They got back up, weapons raised, moving faster. Leary screamed, and from her hands, streaks of pure light shot forward, cutting through the air. One hunter was struck in the chest. The armor melted, the creature inside turning to ash in seconds, but it was taking its toll. Leary staggered, her light flickering. "Stay back!" she cried. Elias didn't listen. He grabbed a metal pipe and swung it hard at a hunter that had come too close. The blow made the creature stumble, just enough for Leary to blast it with. Another beam of light. Finishing it, another hunter grabbed Elias, lifting him off the ground. Its red eyes glowed brighter as it prepared to strike. But then Leary's light flared to a blinding level, and a pulse of energy knocked the hunter away, slamming it into the tunnel ceiling. Elias gasped for breath, but waved weakly. "I had that under control," Leary smiled faintly. "I know." But more hunters were coming. 3 remained, moving carefully now, aware of her strength. Leary's body wavered. Her power was burning fast, and the light around her dimmed for a moment. She fell to one knee, breathing hard. I'm almost out," she whispered. Elias stood beside her, blood on his lip, but his eyes sharp. "Then we end this together." He raised his rifle again. Leary looked at him, then nodded. She placed her hand on the rifle. The old metal glowed blue, pulsing with energy. "Shoot now," she said. Elias didn't ask how. He aimed at the nearest hunter and fired. The bullet, now glowing with Leary's power, shot through the air like a comet. It pierced the hunter clean through, the body collapsing with a metallic scream. Elias fired again. Another shot, another. Hunter down. The last hunter, sensing danger, rushed forward. Its blade arm raised high. Leary stood, her body barely glowing now. She stepped forward, eyes burning with the last of her strength. "No more," she said. She raised both hands and a sphere of light formed between them, small, bright, pure. She threw it. The sphere struck the last hunter, and in a flash of white light, the creature was gone, disintegrated like dust in the wind. Silence returned to the tunnels. The air was still, the dust settling. Elias dropped to one knee, breathing heavily. Leary fell beside him, her body dim, her eyes heavy with exhaustion. Did we ... Did we win? Elias asked. Leary smiled weakly. Yes, for now. Elias laughed softly. You're one bright kid. She rested her head against his arm. Thank you, Father. That word again. It warmed Elias more than the victory itself. They had survived the hunters, but the fight wasn't over. Somewhere out there, others would come. But for now, they had won. And together, they would face whatever came next. The tunnels were silent now. The hunters had been destroyed, their bodies reduced to ash and broken metal. But the cost was clear. Leary was weak, her light barely visible, her steps unsteady. Elias sat beside her, resting his tired body against the cold stone wall. His old rifle lay across his lap, now cracked from the energy it had carried. He looked at Leary, who sat quietly, her eyes half closed. She was alive, they both were, but staying here meant death. More hunters would come. That much Elias was sure of. "We can't stay here, kid," he said softly. "They'll send others, maybe worse." Leary nodded weakly. "I know." Elias looked up at the cracked ceiling of the tunnel. Somewhere above, the sky waited, a sky full of stars, of worlds beyond these broken ruins. He had lived so long in the dirt and dust that he had almost forgotten what it was like to dream of more. But Leary was more than just a child. She was the last flame of her people, a light that deserved to shine. "Do you know any place safe?" Elias asked her. Leary closed her eyes, thinking. Then she whispered, "There is a place. The sanctuary. My people spoke of it. Far beyond. The dead planets, hidden among the stars. Can you find it?" She opened her eyes and smiled faintly. "If I have time and help." Elias smiled back, despite his aching bones. "Then we'd better get moving." They gathered what little they had. Elias helped Leary stand, his hands gentle but firm. As they climbed out of the tunnels and back to the surface, the morning sun broke through the clouds. For the first time in years, Elias saw the sky not as a dead expanse, but as a path, a promise. Leary stood beside him, the sunlight making her silver hair gleam, her violet eyes reflecting the sky. "What will we do now?" she asked. Elias looked at her and smiled. "We find a ship. We leave this broken rock. And we find your sanctuary." Leary stared at the horizon, then took his hand. "You're not just my protector," she said. "You're my father now." The word still felt strange, but Elias liked the way it sounded. "Yeah," he said with a grin. "I suppose I am." They walked together, leaving the ruins behind, an old human and a glowing alien girl, bound not by blood, but by choice and survival. As they disappeared into the distance, the sky above seemed wider, the stars brighter. Somewhere out there, a new home waited, and this time, neither of them would face it alone.